I have to admit, until 20 years ago, I wasn't so reasonable. I was a consumer reporter, and I fell for just about every hysteria that came up. Hey, scientists say chemicals at Love Canal are giving people cancer. Of course, government must regulate airline prices and get tough on illegal drugs. It was only after years of reporting that I realized, gee, the activists were wrong about Love Canal, and government regulation usually makes problems worse, and so does the drug war. I was confused. My liberal beliefs were being disproven by reality, so I stopped reading the liberal media so devoutly and turned to conservative publications. But when I read them, I thought, boy, they want to police my bedroom and police the whole world. That doesn't seem reasonable to me. Finally, I discovered this little magazine called Reason. It was skeptical of both left and right, and the more I read it, the more it made sense. These people really understand life much better than I do. Now, these people were not Matt Welch and Nick Gillespie, the current editors of Reason. You guys probably were barely out of diapers by then, if you are now.
But you go back in after a while.
How did you become reasonable so much more quickly than I did?
You know, for me, it was that my brother, who's older than me, went to college, found it in the college bookstore, and then started sending it home to me. And
so meaning this magazine.
The magazine in high school, and it, like you, it was. I was hearing a lot of stuff about how, oh, the right, you know, the right is always right, or the left is always right. And none of that spoke to me. And, you know, Reason magazine, which talks about free minds and free markets. The founder hated hippies, and he hated cops who beat up hippies.
He hated hippies because he thought they were emotional and foolish.
Yeah, and destructive and hateful towards capitalism often.
And totalitarian in the way that they do things like try to censor free speech. It really took home for me after I came back to the United States after living in Central Europe for 8 years in the late 90s, when I came back looking for the same type of politics that you saw there, which is people hated communism, they loved capital markets and free markets, and they thought that there should be personal freedom to do what you wanted to do. And I came back and I looked for anyone who had that sense of beliefs, and it didn't really exist very much. I came across Reason, a magazine that was kind of about politics, but it also hated politics and tried to speak like humans speak. It was just immediately attracted to me in a way that all this kind of artificial faux media is not.
Yeah, and in a way, I think that was one of the things that always attracted me to it, is that, you know, we're a political magazine that hates politics because we think the most interesting things in life happen beyond that, and it happens in, you know, businesses like Uber or Airbnb, or on the internet, or in weird groups that people form together, whether they're religious communities or charities or things like that. There's so much more stuff that's interesting than what goes on in places like Washington, D.C.
But you've got this arrogant title, Reason, implying everybody else isn't.
Well, the founder, Lanny Friedlander, he thought that we could dose the national debate with rationality. He said in his editor's note announcing the first issue, logic, not legends, coherence, not contradictions. He really believed, and this is a naive belief that we still share, that if you address this, even if you're some nobody coming out of left field, that ultimately you can change people's minds, including and especially people with whom you disagree about ideology and politics.
And, you know, speaking about the hysteria issues that you were talking about, you know, one of the first big articles that got a lot of national press from Reason was about Love Canal. And basically, we had a reporter go there, and what he showed was that the people...
Well, let's back up. Love Canal is this place in upstate New York.
Right, in Niagara Falls. It was a neighborhood that was ultimately built on a toxic chemical dump, and it became in the late 70s a kind of indicator of all that was wrong with corporate America. Corporate America was trying to make money by poisoning people by selling them property on, you know, toxic dumps. And our reporter...
And this was giving people cancer, and this is why there was a cancer epidemic.
Effects. Yeah, exactly. Our reporter went up and he found out it was actually the school board of Niagara Falls that was the real bad actor here, because they had bought the property from the chemical company that said, hey, you know what, whatever you do, don't let anybody build on this. And then they sold it because they could make money on it. And then it also turned out that the science was bogus that was being used.
On two fronts. No one caught a cold from anything at Love Canal that's ever been proven, and there is no cancer epidemic in America, though people still think there is.
Let's at least get to the set of facts that we all can agree on, and then let's have the argument, rather than just arguing from emotional points of view or saying, you know, facts don't matter. What really matters is my point of view.
And everyone's point of view was that airline prices were something that had to be controlled by government.
Not just airline prices, but even the food that they served on flights.
And the Civil Aeronautics Board controlled all that.
And if there was going to be a new route between New York and Houston, then the existing airlines that flew that route had to approve someone else flying that. And weirdly enough, they never really did.
And this was just accepted as the way things had to be.
This was until a cover story that we did that the existing regulation of airlines did not make sense, and that if you deregulated them, prices would go down, competition would flourish, and they would become more safe. That was all seen as basically insane at the time, but that began a process which, lo and behold, only 5 years later, with the help of a lot of liberals like Ted Kennedy and Jimmy Carter and others, led to airline deregulation, which is one of the early and great examples of deregulation helping everybody. Upper class people were the only people who flew before deregulation. That changed after.